Each morning is a quiet miracle, easily overlooked. The fact that your eyes have opened once more, that breath still moves gently through your body, this is not something promised, only gifted. To awaken is to be returned to the realm of movement, of choice, of creation. Gratitude begins when we realize that nothing is truly owed to us, not even this moment. To be awake is not simply to have opened the eyes, but to remember what it means to be alive. You are not the same as you were yesterday. Cells have shifted, the sky has changed, and the conditions around you are no longer what they once were. When the mind acknowledges this fluidity, it stops clinging and begins appreciating. You are not waking into repetition, you are waking into renewal. Gratitude sharpens awareness, it anchors you in the present. A grateful mind sees more clearly, not because the world has changed, but because the fog of dissatisfaction has been lifted. Complaints fade in the presence of wonder. Even the stillness of early morning becomes a profound teacher when you greet it with thankfulness instead of haste. The body, too, responds to gratitude. When you wake and give thanks for movement, for sensation, for the beating heart, it begins to soften. Tension leaves the jaw, the shoulders drop, the breath becomes fuller. What was automatic becomes sacred again. You stop rushing into the day and begin arriving into it. To be awake is to have once again been invited to walk the path. How many were not given this day? The awareness of death is not morbid, it is motivating. It humbles the ego and sharpens the purpose. Gratitude arises naturally when you remember the fragile thread that binds life. This remembrance does not sadden you. It strengthens your presence. You do not need everything to go right in order to be thankful. Gratitude is not dependent on outer perfection, but on inner perception. A cold morning, a sore muscle, an unfinished task. These are not barriers to gratitude. They are invitations. To practice being grateful despite is more powerful than being grateful because of. When you rise each day and say, "I am grateful to be awake," you are choosing to begin with reverence. You are not demanding from life, you are bowing to it. That one phrase sets the tone not just for your words, but for your actions, your thoughts, your posture throughout the day. It is not a sentence, it is a seed. This seed, when nourished each morning, grows into awareness, into care, into quiet strength. Gratitude at the beginning becomes the way you walk, the way you eat, the way you listen. It is the discipline of appreciation that cultivates peace in a world that never stops shouting for more every morning. The sky does not ask who you were yesterday. It simply appears again, stretching in silence, offering its vastness without judgment. In the same way, you are not bound to the identity that your past insists upon. What has happened before may have left its trace, but it does not own your next step. The moment you awaken, you are given permission to start again. There is a discipline in releasing what no longer serves. Regret, guilt, pride. They are weights that cling only because we allow them to. To begin anew is not to forget, but to stop carrying forward what is no longer necessary. The warrior does not keep sharpening old wounds. He tends to them and then steps forward with both strength and softness. Each breath is an invitation to begin again. You need not wait for a new year, a perfect moment, or a sign from outside. The body does not hesitate to regenerate. The heart beats without needing permission. Nature continues regardless of memory. You too belong to that rhythm. The past is not a cage unless you lock the door yourself. To start anew, you must return to the simplicity of now. Not what you hoped for, not what you feared. Just this, the current moment and what you choose to do with it. Awareness sharpens when you cease reaching for what is gone. Focus is born when you let go of trying to rewrite yesterday and instead write the first word of today. A mind that begins anew is not distracted by the noise of reputation or the illusions of identity. It does not rehearse old stories to justify its limitations. Instead, it becomes quiet, open, curious. In this stillness, potential rises, not as fantasy, but as possibility rooted in action. Beginning anew means meeting life with fresh eyes, even if you have seen the same path before. The world will still call you by your history, but you do not need to answer to that name. You can respond through your presence, your movement, your choices. Transformation is not announced, it is embodied. The more you practice beginning again, the less the past can control the shape of your spirit. No habit is stronger than the will to change it. No failure is greater than the strength to rise again. To begin anew is to reclaim this truth each morning. It is not loud or dramatic. It is a quiet, steady return to the essential, the part of you untouched by time, untouched by fear, untouched by the opinions of others. The path is not fixed. It is created with each step you take now, not the ones already walked. Each time you tell yourself, today, I begin anew, you are not escaping something behind you, but returning to the center from which all direction comes. The mind is a field, and every thought is a seed. Whether you plant weeds or medicine is not the fault of the world. It is the practice of awareness. Thoughts may arise like clouds, but it is you who decides which ones stay, which ones are allowed to shape your inner landscape. Responsibility begins the moment you stop blaming the weather for the garden you keep. You cannot stop thoughts from coming, just as you cannot stop the wind, but you can decide where to place your attention, and that is where your power lies. What you nurture with your focus will grow. What you neglect will wither. Without this understanding, you become a servant to your thinking rather than the steward of it. A thought has no strength unless you feed it. Anger, worry, doubt. They ask for your energy, but they cannot take it without your permission. Most people do not realize they are nourishing their suffering each day simply by replaying the same mental loops. Every repetition is a reinforcement, and every reinforcement becomes a wall you must later climb. When you accept that your thoughts are your responsibility, you stop waiting for others to change before you can be at peace. You stop needing perfect conditions to feel clear. Inner stability is no longer dependent on the behavior of others, nor on the events that come and go. Responsibility brings with it the ability to remain grounded amid movement. A responsible mind is not rigid, it is disciplined. It does not try to suppress thought, but to observe it. From observation comes understanding. From understanding comes choice. And from choice comes the quiet power to shift direction, again and again, whenever the wind of distraction blows too strong. Even in silence, the mind is active. It will attempt to pull you into story, into memory, into projection. But just because a thought appears does not mean it must be believed. You do not need to fight the thought. You only need to remember that it is yours to relate to in whatever way you choose. This is not a punishment. It is freedom disguised as discipline. When thoughts arise that do not serve, do not panic. Do not criticize yourself for their presence. Simply notice them. Bow to them if needed. Then gently return to the one who watches. This return, again and again, is the training. This return is what sharpens the sword of awareness and cuts through illusion. You are not responsible for the thoughts that enter, but you are responsible for whether they stay, whether they lead, whether they shape your action and define your discipline. Is the path walked by those who no longer wish to be ruled by the changing winds of emotion. Moods shift like the weather, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy, but the one who depends on the weather to train, to act, or to move will remain inconsistent. Choosing discipline is choosing stability in a world governed by impermanence. The mood of the morning cannot be trusted. It is a leftover echo of yesterday's thoughts, the body's chemical state, or even the sleep that was missed. But discipline does not ask how you feel, it only asks, will you show up? This is where strength begins, not in intensity, but in repetition that does not depend on preference. There is a common misunderstanding that discipline is harsh or rigid, but true discipline is not forceful. It is rooted in clarity. When you know what is meaningful, when you remember your direction, then action no longer needs permission from the emotional landscape. It becomes automatic, like the breath, like the rising sun. Moods make promises they do not keep. One moment they convince you to rest when you should move. Another moment they push you to act when you should be still. Discipline listens to something deeper than emotion. It listens to the vow you made to yourself, the vow you must renew daily without applause and without reward. Discipline frees you from negotiating with yourself every day. There is no question of whether to train, whether to sit in silence, whether to follow the schedule. The mind that is bound by mood wakes up each day as a servant to uncertainty. The mind trained by discipline wakes as a master of its own movement. To live by mood is to constantly restart, to build a little and then abandon. To live by discipline is to continue, even when the mood disappears, even when motivation runs dry. That is how a path becomes a practice, and a practice becomes part of you. Not through passion, but through persistence. Discipline is not the enemy of feeling. It is the structure within which feeling can flow without taking over. Like a river contained by banks, emotions can move freely when there is form. Without that form, they flood, they scatter, they erode the direction of your life. Choosing discipline is choosing to remain steady as feelings rise and fall. Every time you act from discipline rather than mood, you are training the mind to become strong, to become reliable, to become free from its own impulses. The one who acts only when they feel like it will never meet their potential, because feeling is not the measure action, is in a world that moves faster each day. Stillness has become rare, and what is rare often becomes misunderstood. Many associate stillness with passivity, with doing nothing, but true stillness is not the absence of action. It is the presence of depth. It is the conscious choice to remain unmoved when distraction calls, when reaction tempts, when the external demands urgency. Stillness is not just found in the body. It begins in the mind. You may sit without moving, yet inside be filled with noise. Stillness is cultivated when the mind, like a lake undisturbed, begins to reflect truth without distortion. In that calmness, insight surfaces naturally, not through effort, but through clarity. Clarity that only arises when the waters are no longer stirred by every passing wind. Strength is often associated with force, with resistance, with control. But real strength lies in the ability to remain rooted when others are swayed. Stillness trains the nervous system to respond, not react. It teaches the heart to listen before it speaks, the body to observe before it moves. A still person does not lack power. They conserve it. There is a silent power in the pause between stimulus and response. In that brief moment, everything is decided, whether you follow habit or intention, whether you feed conflict or dissolve it. Stillness makes that pause wide enough to breathe, to see, to choose. It gives space to what is essential and removes what is noisy. Stillness is not weakness. It is the calm readiness of the archer before the release, the composure of the warrior who wastes no motion, the awareness of the sage who speaks only when speech is needed. It is not born from laziness but from discipline, not from apathy but from deep attention. In stillness, you return to yourself. Without input, without opinion, without stimulation, you face what remains when all else is quiet. Many avoid stillness because they are afraid of what they might find. But the one who walks the inner path knows that only by entering that silence can one uncover what is real and unshakable nature teaches stillness through its cycles. The mountain does not move, yet it endures. The moon does not hurry, yet it completes its phases. This is the strength of what does not rush, of what is stable, of what is aligned with the deeper rhythms. The one who aligns with this rhythm gains strength not from noise, but from presence. Stillness builds resilience. When others panic, you observe. When the world pulls, you stay centered. Not because you are unaffected, but because you have trained not to be carried away. The waves may come, but you remain as the seabed, grounded, aware, unmoved by surface disturbance. There is a difference between motion and direction. Many people move quickly, but without clarity. They chase, they rush, they exhaust themselves, only to arrive nowhere. To walk with purpose is not to move faster. It is to move with understanding, to take each step in alignment with what truly matters. Hurry is born from fear, fear of missing out, fear of being left behind, fear of not being enough. It is reactive, not intentional, but purpose arises from stillness and insight. It does not seek to catch up. It seeks to move in accordance with one's inner compass. Where there is purpose, there is no need to rush. The path reveals itself only to those who are steady enough to see it. In the hurry to get somewhere, we often overlook where we are. The hurried mind misses the details, ignores the signs, and steps over the wisdom hidden in silence. Purpose demands presence, and presence cannot exist where haste rules. To walk with purpose is to know why you move before deciding how fast. When your reason is clear, speed becomes irrelevant. There are times to move swiftly and times to slow down. Wisdom lies in knowing which is needed, not because the world pushes you, but because you have listened deeply. Each step taken with purpose carries weight, not in burden but in depth. The ground beneath you is not just passed over, it is acknowledged. Every movement becomes an expression of your values, your vision, your chosen direction. This is the difference between drifting and progressing, between wandering and walking a path. The hurried person is often caught by their own mind. Thoughts run ahead, tasks multiply, and life becomes a blur. But the purposeful one holds their ground. They do not run after the next moment. They bring full attention to this one. This is how meaning is built, not through quantity, but through quality of presence. Even when the world accelerates, the one who walks with purpose remains composed. They may walk into fire, into challenge, into uncertainty, but they do so deliberately. The pace does not define the strength of the step. What defines it is the inner state from which it arises. A mind that is anchored, a heart that is aligned. Purpose is quiet. It does not announce itself with noise or urgency. It moves silently, but with conviction. Those who witness it may not understand the slowness, the calm, the refusal to be rushed. But over time, it becomes clear who was merely busy and who was truly moving forward.